Checking the mic. We're recording. Okay. So I'm going to get started here. I am going to go into some of the plays that we called over this week. Some quarter breaks, and then I believe it was Tuesday morning. Jamal and I were in the live chat, and he was singing, and we were looking at charts, and that was pretty dope. So he also called some plays, and then he also posted them here in the members chat, the members plays chat. He posted some plays that kind of were fire this week as well. So I'll get into those shortly, but let's start with just looking at the regular stuff first. I want to start here with VIX because it's red on the month, which of course we've seen so far with the market, with that bounce, the insane bounce that we had yesterday. So far VIX is red on the month. Nasdaq so far has a hammer, and everything else is printing a hammer. We uncouple on Tuesday, so we'll be able to see what time frame continuity looks like. But so far, that's kind of how we opened up the first week of 2023, with VIX being a 2 down red, and everything else kind of ended in sort of like a bullish hammer. So interesting to see if some of these outside weeks continue. I obviously buyers stepped in, bulls were in the building, so if they continue, we'll see these 3 2-ups on the week. Otherwise, we'll have to see. It may be like an outside week for some things. I mean, not outside, inside week, just because we had that strong move. So have to see what kind of happens. VIX is looking real bearish here, so that would be really bullish for the market. However, it is sitting a little bit at a support level here, so seeing if it falls below this $20 level and continues down, then we'll see more bullish activity in the market. We also have CPI on Thursday, so who knows kind of what will happen. Until then, they could push it up and then tank it for that. It could tank and then push for CPI, and we just kind of really don't know. So, we always take what we're given. So those are those. Let's look at Apple and Microsoft. So far on the month, we're still red. Microsoft triggered to the downside, but it came back up with that bullish correction. We're going to look at that in a little bit, but Microsoft was just, it filled its gap, and then it just kind of kept going. So interesting to see what this does, because if it's having more corrective activity, that's going to send the market kind of like it did the last time it dropped down like that. So looking at it on the week, so you see SPY here did this hammer. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. The Qs, not so much a hammer. It's like a doji, but still ended strong. Basically where it opened at. So no actionable signal here, but this is kind of sort of a hammer. And then again with Microsoft, seeing if they continue this to the downside, or if it has an inside week, then continues, or how it works, or however it goes. But what I wanted to show y'all on the day with Microsoft, so basically, we were looking for it to fill this gap here since here. And it did kind of sharply here, but then now it left this gap here to the upside. So we are aware of that, especially since the daily printed a hammer, kind of far away from the EMAs here. So I can definitely see Microsoft making some corrective activity up here to fill this gap. It could take a while, just like it took days to fill that gap. So just kind of have to see. This is this is still could be like a shoulder area right here. So we got a shoulder, head, and this entire area could be a shoulder area. So if Microsoft wants to come up here and correct, then do like this, it could, you know, really just bounce around in this area for a while and iron out this price area. You can see here where it gapped down. To fill that gap, it's just an area that it may need to iron out. So I can definitely see, actually will probably be watching Microsoft to the upside this week, even to CPI, with this, especially with this hammer. Yeah, but if that hammer doesn't go in force, then on the weekly you have that outside 3. So the 3-2 down would be the bearish continuation, showing that the bears are still in control. Because, you know, this could definitely have just been some corrective activity and it could still go to the downside. And as far as Apple, Apple kind of the same thing. It's, well, not the same thing, actually. It's a little bit different. Apple has been kind of basing right here. So it's basing for a move, just not quite sure which direction it wants to go yet. I really think Microsoft will be a deciding factor, because if Microsoft decides to go, I think it will push the rest of the market. So, and you know, the Qs are similar to Apple to the point where it's been basing. And so I think Microsoft will decide which direction it wants to go from this base. It looks like it's, you know, kind of made a support here, but then could definitely just fall. That shooter on the quarter for Apple is still in force. So I mentioned that one, actually. Yep, it is. Barely, but it's still in force. I had mentioned that at the end of the quarter, and it did come down. It did not hit the target yet. So that could be just corrective activity that we saw to continue that trend down. Just kind of have to see what it does, but we are aware of the shooter on the quarter and the fact that it's still in force. So, all right, so let's look at SPY on a bigger screen. So, first of all, on the month, oh, let me hide that, because these are not valid yet because we have not uncoupled. So remember, we uncouple on Tuesday, so I'll be moving those around once we actually uncouple and drawing my lines and stuff like that. So right now you kind of see we're inside month hammer. Bulls are in control so far. Looking at it on the 2-week, because we are 1 week into this 2-week candle, we have triggered to the upside as long as we stay above basically 388. Trigger to the upside. So let's see if that continues. As long as Microsoft, well, if Microsoft moves, then I think that it will finish. But what we would have to see, we know that this has been a point of resistance, these EMAs, but it has like been able to pop above it. It did on the weekly hit its target here, so we have to see kind of what it does from here, but it has a hammer on the week. So if the bulls stay in control, then it can push to the upside and finish that 2-week bar, possibly. So but you know, when we scroll out on the day, back here I was warning y'all that this was like a consolidation area. And then once we finally broke out of that, I warned you guys about the shoulder, head, shoulder that we could possibly create kind of back here. And that's exactly what it did. It's really been bouncing around the same area for a couple of weeks now. SPY has been it's been very, very choppy. It's been very trappy price action, but that's kind of what a shoulder is. It's creating this shoulder over here. Now, it does look like the head and shoulders, but at the same time, this also could be creating a base, because we see that this cannot break 380. It just can't. It'll break, and then the buyers will just buy it right back up. It's kind of been a magnet. You see right here, 380. It's just price has gone down. Below it, it's gone up. Above it, it's just come right back to this 380. So on Friday, we finally broke out of this little consolidation area, and then we just barely filled this gap that we didn't fill before. So right here, we did not fill it, but here we actually did fill it. And then we do have like a teeny tiny gap up here. So if we continue, I would think that would be our next target. This same support area that was right here in this consolidation area, I would expect to be resistance, which would probably, once we got up there, would almost meet up to this 200. So that would be my first, targets to the upside. Just kind of have to see what SPY does. But yeah, still keeping in mind this head and shoulders, that shooter on Apple. And then I did, go back. Because Microsoft, no, but I don't think it was. It on the year? I think it was on the year. Yes, Microsoft on the year. It's just something I noticed, wanted to put on you guys' radar, is that it did do a red inside year. So if Microsoft breaks 212, good night. And good night market, because yeah, that's not good. So yeah, we're just keeping that in mind as of now, because where Microsoft is at, it could see some correction. But yeah. All right, moving on. IWM. So kind of the same thing on a month. It's a bullish hammer so far. On the week, it hit its target to the upside, and it's kind of like sitting at a resistance now. On the 2-week, it has triggered to the upside. That right there is a lot of range. So depending on how bullish we are, we could definitely send it. And then looking at it on the daily, just kind of looks just like SPY. You kind of see it. Hopefully y'all see it. We had the consolidation area, came up, corrective activity, finally took these folks out, broke out of this consolidation. So to see if it continues up to the upside, or if comes back down into this chop. But this is just still chop area, so we just keep that in mind, that a lot of things have been moving sideways, and yes, they broke out on Friday, but keeping in mind the overall downtrend that things are in. So yeah, we could correct, we could move, but we have to just kind of see what goes on. So XLE, we were looking at on the quarter. No, I think it was the year. I wanted to look at it on the year, because this is the first study session of the year. I kind of forgot to mention that. So although we did put some plays in the chat, we haven't really come and looked at the charts on the year. So yeah, XLE, we know that was like the play of the year last year. So I just wanted to mention that because this moved so much last year, that I really think that this year is probably going to be an inside year. It could possibly go for these highs, but I honestly think it's going to be an inside year. Looking at it on the quarter, so far it's an inside quarter. Last quarter, it didn't really give you any actionable signals. So yeah, kind of have to see what it does. It's recovered pretty strong last week. It was going down, it had triggered to the downside, didn't quite hit its target, came back up and ended strong. So if the bulls stay in control here, this could definitely 3-2 up, because it's had its corrective activity here, and if they want to continue it, then that's what we would look for. So SOXL had a surprising end to the week, like everything else. Broke out of this consolidation after it finally filled this gap here. So, you know, again, it kind of looks like everything else where overall it's a head and shoulders, and this may just be corrective activity. But we do note that it did close above the 8 EMA. So, kind of want to see what it does. I think it was a 2-week. Yeah, see if it triggers this to the upside and has a pretty strong week. So yeah, that's XOXL. McDonald's, we have been watching. We thought that it was going to come down, and it did finally come down and fill its gap, but then the buyer stepped right back in. I mean, if you look at it on the month, it basically TTO'd and came back up and bounced off this support here. So on the week, it did an outside week. Because it's had its corrective activity, we could definitely see it do a 3-2 up if the bulls stay in the building. But yeah, on the day, we were looking at this kind of struggle here, and it took a while, but it was like a slow bleed, but it finally came and filled this gap that we were targeting, and they immediately bought it back up, corrected a little bit more, and then boom. So that was decent. And then NVIDIA, I wanted to talk about. And that is because, well, Brittany mentioned that we should watch it for next week. And yeah, I mean, it's had some corrective activity. That TTO here? Not quite. But we do have an inside week here. Yeah, I know I love inside weeks. So you could definitely move to the upside. On the day, it could 3-2. Yeah, 3-2 to the upside, 150.88, and then 153.29. So yeah, watch NVIDIA. It's come up, and then it's based right here. So this may be a decent play. Also watching it on the month, because also to the downside, if it decides, if we have a red week, or if it does push the downside, it could 2 up, 2 down on the month. So yeah, keep that in mind. Oh, let me go back to the quarter, because that's what I was going to talk about next, was BABA. So we've been talking about BABA for a while, or a couple weeks, that the quarter hammer was forming, and we were looking for it to trigger, and it did, basically. I was looking for it to stay above 90, and it really it gapped up in a couple of days, and it took off. So BABA is in force on the quarter to the upside. So first target is about 125. Yep. And then what I wanted to point out was, first of all, just noticing where BABA is at, you know, where it bounced from. But then looking at it on the year, if BABA continues, it can definitely have a really good year. Above 140 would be the 2 up trigger reversal on the year. So watch BABA. We will not stop watching BABA all year. It could definitely not finish that, but you know, our first target would be the 125, then around that 140, and if it can hold above that, next target would be that 181 to 27 possibly. So depending on, you know, what they do this year, this could be a good reversal play. And so that's most of your China stocks too. I was doing BABA, but Jamal also mentioned KWEB as the China ETF. That's also triggered to the upside. And at that on the year, it's also could possibly, I mean, this one actually TTO'd. So, you know, it went to its lowest ever. So if it does decide to reverse, that would be decent. And FXI was another one he mentioned. So yep, see, that's triggered to the upside. So keep China on your watch list this year, because it's definitely looking like a decent play. And then another one that was mentioned is Verizon. So Verizon is something that I started watching a long time ago. And I know that it was always a decent stock that kind of stayed in its range and was I guess, one of those safe plays, I'll say. So when I saw it do this, I was waiting for this reversal, honestly. So, we've done a TTO here, and we've triggered on the quarter to the upside. So Verizon is not a big mover. I just want you to understand that it's not a big mover, but it's a pretty cheap play that you can like buy in the money or at the money and sit in, for this ride up. So it may take a while because obviously it's on the quarter, but I think Verizon is a good play for the quarter to the upside. And then another one, it hasn't triggered yet, but SO. So we also did a TTO, and I'm looking to see if it did slightly trigger, but it came back in. So if it comes back up, then over around 73, this will trigger to the upside. I think it's on a day, it has an inside day. So it's struggling a little bit at its 200. So I think that would be that's the resistance right there. If it can get past here and hold above it, because you see it tried, but then it fell back below. So if it can hold above it, then it's going to trigger the quarter to the upside. And then lastly is ATVI. It has kind of finally broken out of this low range a little bit. Kind of have to see if it holds above here, but it's trying to hold above this 200, these 200 EMAs, so in the SMA. So I know that Jamal also mentioned this. We put it on our radar because Microsoft's lawsuit with them started this week. So I know that their target price is 85. I'm sorry, 95. So, and we were even looking at the contracts, but I wanted to point out that it has slightly triggered on the quarter. So if it continues and it decides to move, then the first target is obviously 81. But yeah, this hammer has went into enforce so far. So if it can hold, then that would be a decent play. With some time, of course. So, and then only other things I had was a couple of things that had triggered the outside month, and that's AMGN. Had its little corrective activity, and it's coming back in. So the target for this is 289, yeah, 288. Oh, bruh, it's right there. 288. UAL is another one. It's funny. I was just on a weekend shift talking with Jermaine, and Love has been having its issues, but then it just had a crazy day on Friday that was kind of unexpected. So, but all airlines have kind of been doing well. BA has been doing wonderful. In fact, I'll look at that in a second. But UAL has triggered above this 41.57, so the target for that is right around 46. And then T-Mobile has also triggered to the upside. So above 145, target is 153.36. So let's look at BA, because BA has been doing wonderful. They have earnings coming up, I think the 25th. So, but looking at them on the year, this is another one. If this actually continues, it can have a decent year. It had a horrible last 3 years. It's been doing bad. Like it's been in this crazy downtrend. So just have to see if it does rev strat on the year, but it could be a possible decent year swing. If it can get above 230 and hold, then y'all know with rev strats we would target this So, I mean, that's a lot this year, but who's to say that they don't have great earnings? They don't start, the number. I forget what the numbers are with the airlines, um, but yeah, they could definitely have a good year. We trade the price action, but that's the rough strat right there.
BA also has the plus of being a weapons of mass destruction maker too. So they don't just make airplanes; they make missiles and um, those weapons of mass destruction, rockets, missiles, planes, jets. They make all of that stuff. So that they're getting bank
Right.
regardless of what's going on, especially in wartime.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come up. That's all I wanted to add. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you fine. You fine. Um, that I mean that makes sense, and it also makes sense why it's starting to really reverse here. I mean, look at it even on the month. It's above all the CMAs on the month, so that's really really good. Uh, Zooming out, it just looks like it bottomed out, and yeah. So VA looks really good. It's still going. Pretty sure it's going to need some corrective activity. I mean, but look how strong it ended. So, yeah, it's just been riding this EMA straight on up. So as long as it continues to trend, I personally would wait for it to come back down to the EMA and then whatever continuation. But yeah, BA looks good. That's actually all I have. Forgot to mention snow. So snow actually triggered the monthly to the downside, and Kiki called this out in the Discord and said that it was going to 122, and it hit the strat target perfectly. So now that it has hit that target, if you look at it on the weekly, if it decides that it wants to continue down, which I don't really think it will. Let me look at on the quarter. And it's not an actionable signal on the quarter. It could, however, still come down to 110. So if snow continues to die, it hit this target, it came back in, but if it does, it can still go down to 110. Looking at it on the 2 week, it did an outside 2 week and an outside week. So if this does a 3-2, we can look for it to go to 110. Otherwise, it may just be an inside week next week since it moved so much last week. But what I did want to point out is that we did TTO. So we TTO'd them and then we came back in. So snow may actually be a good reversal play to the upside. If it can break above 126, we can look to target 129.51 in the EMAs and these strat targets, 138.97. Sorry for that background noise. But I can definitely see it coming back up into this range, or even possibly doing something like NH like that before it continues down to that 110. So keep snow on your radar. Okay. Jamal, you got anything for us today? Or anything you wanted to look at?
I haven't narrowed it down to specific stuff, but I can tell you about some things that's going to happen that might influence the price of some stuff. Um, on Monday, or basically all, I guess next week, there's going to be a couple of conferences. The biggest one I'm seeing is healthcare. JP Morgan is sponsoring some healthcare conference. So stuff like Merck, Walgreens, Bristol Myers Squibb, those stocks or companies will actually be presenting there, but all healthcare will probably be on watch.
Okay.
Um, those three being the biggest. And then there's another one in the retail. So I got eyes on maybe like Macy's and Lululemon. They'll be presenting there. And then on a Friday, Macy's, Lululemon, and Crocs is what I'm going to be looking at. Um, on Friday, there's a lot of earnings for banks, like a lot.
Oh,
JPM, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, they all have earnings on Friday. So just looking at the banks also going into the week.
okay.
And then Caterpillar is going to be putting out their quarterly machine deliveries. So basically telling people how much, money they made on the quarter. So that could potentially be price action on Caterpillar. Caterpillar. I can't say the word. Cat.
CAT,
The cat. Also going into next week.
Wildcat.
But other than that, you kind of was on it already. Microsoft, I'm looking at Microsoft. Always looking at McDonald's to dump. It doesn't want to,
It
but
does not. I swear it doesn't.
I was also looking for Nike to dump, but that doesn't want to either. So
I think I had,
just keeping those
yeah.
on radar.
Yeah, Nike. I mean, it did
And
dump because, but yeah, it's
yeah,
definitely.
but then it has that recovery, just like McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's. It recovered. But yeah, I haven't finished doing all of my DD for the week, for the upcoming week yet. But those tickers, Lululemon, Crocs, some banks, maybe I'll have to pick one, whichever has the best setup. But retail banks, and then some off plays with the rest of the week that's coming up. But I think the biggest thing will probably be retail and banks. Healthcare. I'm sorry, yeah, retail bank and healthcare. There's another healthcare conference going on next week. I don't know if I said anything about that, but JP Morgan is hosting one. And so ABBV will be presenting there. They're big. ABBV, Abbott, they make Botox as well as a lot of other stuff. I didn't even know they made Botox, but that's one of their
Yeah.
biggest, most famous products is Botox.
Okay.
But yeah, other than that, I don't really have too many specifics.
That's cool. I appreciate those. And then you also said your favorite was PDD. I just saw what you wrote in the chat.
Oh yes,
Um,
yes, yes. So I like watching Baba and PDD, but PDD seems to be the one that's
it's
catching
already
my
triggered.
attention just because of the moves that it make. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
This already triggered on the yearly to the upside. So,
So I'm thinking Baba might even be a lagger
mm-hmm.
because PDD is showing you what China seems like it wants to do now.
Yeah, add this to the list. We're definitely going to keep that. Keep watching that. Keep talking about that because yeah, it looks good. That looks good.
Yeah.
Trying to
But
get
just
to.
in general, in the long term, I want to be probably trying to take a look at sector rotation. As of right now, I'm thinking that people are starting to buy into healthcare. Not specifically sure about the specific realm of healthcare, but there's been a lot of therapeutical companies that Charlie has been talking about. If you're familiar with Benzinga and all that other stuff, but
Yeah, I'm
you know,
familiar with them, but I didn't. So, like, but okay, I need to see exactly what's in, like, which healthcare ones they're talking about. Because I would think that they wouldn't be talking about it as much or as interested in healthcare right now because I mean we're a few years, a couple years post COVID. Although
mhm.
we do have other things going on now, but I didn't think
Well,
they would
yeah,
still
I
be.
think the big thing is because what I'm seeing is that a lot of companies are doing like it's not even COVID related stuff. It's healthcare as far as MS, healthcare as far as arthritis. These type of companies that are making these drugs, like the highest selling drug is an arthritis drug. It's not anything related to COVID, and that's made by I can't even remember the name, but it's like either Lilly or ABT or Pfizer. Like those are the big players as of right now. And I
Okay.
also, I'm not sure if I spoke about it over here, but the Lilly weight loss drug is going to be coming out this year. And that's going to, they've already done the numbers and said that's going to be the all time most highest selling drug is that drug. So I just want to keep eyes on healthcare as each one of these companies tries to, put out their different treatments and whatnot.
That makes sense. And you did mention Botox, so yeah, and BBLs and stuff like that would fall in that category, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. All right, we're looking on the, yeah, we're above the 200 on the day, although that looks like it's trying to head and shoulders there, but yeah. XLV is the healthcare.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. If you want to just keep eyes on that as a whole and see what all the individual ones are doing, because most of the stuff that I named is actually in there.
Perfect. That's high level up there. Could definitely bounce. I mean, it's kind of this is kind of like a resistance right here. But yeah, if it can break above here, kind of looks good on the day. Like the buyers could step in here. Yeah, it's had some corrective activity. So yeah, $135. That's not bad. All
Hmm.